The world flattens every dangerous person into one word: toxic. It is a useful word for a spill. It is a poor word for a person. Scripture refuses it. Scripture counts. It names 6 kinds of friend it says to walk away from, each with its own word in the original language, each with its own way in. And it learned them from a king. David wrote a line about the people closest to him, and it does not name a stranger. They have sharpened their tongues like a serpent. Adder's poison is under their lips. Sharpened, not shouted. A man who never lost a war asked God for protection from people who never once raised their voice against him. If the safest man in Israel was not safe inside his own circle, no circle is safe by accident. So the only question worth asking is which of the 6 is standing in the room right now. Stay to the last one. The first 5 announce themselves, if you know the sound. The 6th never raises his voice at all. He does not silver the tongue or slam the door. He eats at your table, and he is the reason this list exists. 6 kinds of friend, and the order matters, because they get harder to see as they go. A woman named Doreen Calloway still carries a stone in her apron pocket. Smooth, gray, worn round by the creek that runs behind her church outside Noonan, Georgia. A friend gave it to her, years back, on an ordinary Monday. The kind of friend who always knew exactly what to say. She has prayed for him every night since. What she never asked, in all those years of praying, was why she came home from every visit a little more tired than she left. She kept praying for him. She never once walked away from him, and nobody had ever told her those were 2 different decisions. By the end, she will know which stone she has been holding. The first is the one you can spot from across a room, and the one people defend the longest. Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man thou shalt not go, lest thou learn his ways, and get a snare to thy soul. The Hebrew behind angry man is not a mood. It is closer to owner of the nostril, a man who holds his rage the way he holds a piece of land. It does not blow through him on a bad afternoon. He keeps it. He owns it. That changes what the warning is about. Weather passes. Property does not sell itself off by morning. And notice what Proverbs says the danger actually is. Not that he will strike her, that she will learn his ways. The threat was never one explosion. It is the slow lesson of standing close to a temper, long enough that a raised voice starts to sound like the ordinary noise of being loved. That is how it gets into a house, without anyone deciding to let it in. Children who grow up flinching at a slammed door rarely remember choosing to flinch. So here is the test for the first one. Not, does he ever get angry? Everyone gets angry. The test is, does the anger belong to him, or does he keep handing it to everyone around him to hold? A man who owns his temper apologizes for it. A man whose temper owns him makes the room apologize for setting him off. The angry man is the loudest of the 6. He is also the easiest. The next one is quieter, and people fight to keep him. The second one, you do not want to remove. That is what makes him the second, and not the first. A man that flattereth his neighbor spreadeth a net for his feet. The word for flattereth means smooth, slick. The same texture Scripture uses for a surface built so a foot slides without feeling the ground move. Flattery is not loud praise. It is praise engineered to move a person, gently, without her noticing she has been moved at all. The angry man announces himself through discomfort. This one announces himself through relief. A compliment from exactly the wrong mouth still feels, in the moment it lands, like being loved. There is a way to tell the 2 apart, and it takes longer than one conversation. Real encouragement leaves a person steadier standing on her own. Flattery leaves her needing to hear it again, a little more each time. That is the test for the second one. After his praise, is she stronger without him or hungrier for him? A net does not have to be checked once it has closed around a foot. The third one, you have almost certainly never confronted because he arranges it so there is nothing to confront. A froward man soweth strife, and a whisperer separateth chief friends. The whisperer there is a specific Hebrew word. It is not the gossip who talks too much. It is the one who says a little, quietly, to the right ear, at the right moment, and walks away clean. He does not separate strangers. Read it again. He separates chief friends, the closest ones. He works on the strongest bonds, because those are the ones worth breaking. And he is almost never caught, because his weapon leaves no fingerprints. A raised voice can be pointed to, a whisper cannot. By the time two old friends realize something got between them, the man who put it there is already 3 rooms away, sewing the next one. So how do you catch the third one? Look at the wreckage, not the man. After time spent with him, are her other friendships stronger or stranger? A whisperer can be invisible. What he leaves behind cannot. The fourth one does not push. He invites, and the invitation always sounds like belonging. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. Entice is a Hebrew word that means to persuade someone to give in, not to force them, to open them. He never orders, he never threatens. He just keeps the door propped, warmly, and calls it friendship every time she steps closer to it. That is why he is worse than the 3 before him. The angry man, the flatterer, the whisperer, all work on her feelings. This one works on her feet. Proverbs finishes the thought 4 verses down, and it is the whole answer in one line. My son, walk not thou in the way with them, refrain thy foot from their path. Not argue with them, not fix them, walk not thou in the way with them. The Bible's counsel here is not a debate, it is a direction. Turn the foot. The test for the fourth one is the simplest of all. Not, is he a bad person? It is, where does time with him take her? Every friendship is a road going somewhere. Some roads she should not be walking, no matter how good the company feels on the way down. Before the fifth, and the fifth is where it turns from company to contempt, there is something waiting for the person who has already recognized a face in one of these 4. In the first pinned comment, there is a watchman's guide, put together as a quiet companion for exactly this, scripture and prayer for naming what she has been carrying, and the courage to set it down. It is there as a gift, not a burden. The one who learns to name the poison also learns to name the cure. The fifth one does something the first 4 never quite do. He goes after her faith directly, and he does it with a smile, so it never looks like an attack. Cast out the scorner, and contention shall go out. Yea, strife and reproach shall cease. Scorner is a word Scripture uses with unusual weight. It is the same root as the seat of the scornful in the very first psalm, the chair a person sinks into by degrees, until mocking is just how she sits now. The scorner does not argue with her hope. He makes her embarrassed to have it. He has a way of making prayer sound naive, and faith sound like something she will grow out of, and every tender thing she believes sound a little foolish, said out loud in front of him. And notice what Proverbs promises when he is removed. Not just that he leaves. Cast out the scorner, and contention shall go out. The fighting goes with him. He was not one voice in the room. He was the source of the friction in it. The test for the fifth one is the quietest of them all. After time with him, is her faith bolder or quieter? Does she pray more freely, or has she started editing herself before she speaks? A scorner rarely takes her belief away in one blow. He just makes her ashamed of it, one comment at a time, until she stops mentioning it at all. 5 now. The angry man she could see. The flatterer she wanted, the whisperer she could not catch. The seducer walked beside her, the scorner shamed her, and every one of them, at least, was something other than family. The 6th is not. This is the one the whole list was built to reach. The 6th kind of dangerous friend is not a stranger who got close. He is the closest one there is. David wrote the line, and it still reads like a wound that never fully closed. Yea, mine own familiar friend, in whom I trusted, which did eat of my bread, hath lifted up his heel against me. And familiar friend, in the Hebrew, is not a casual phrase. It means the man of my peace, my ally, the one I stopped guarding against, because guarding against him would have felt like an insult, which did eat of my bread. This is not a coworker. This is a man who had a place at the table. And 1,000 years after David, it happened again, in a garden, in the dark, and this time the Son of God was on the receiving end of it. Now he that betrayed him gave them a sign, saying, Whomsoever I shall kiss, that same is he. Hold him fast. And forthwith he came to Jesus, and said, Hail, Master, and kissed him. A kiss. The sign chosen was the sign of affection. Judas did not point from a distance. He walked up close enough to touch, and used the gesture of love as the blade. And listen to what Jesus said back. And Jesus said unto him, Friend, wherefore art thou come? Friend. The Greek word there is not the word for a beloved friend. It is a different word, companion, associate, the man you travel with. Jesus was not confused about what was happening. He was not naming what Judas was. He was naming what Judas had presented himself as all along. He was holding the mask up to the light so everyone could see it was a mask. That is the whole difference this video turns on. Naming what a person presents himself as is not the same as validating what he is. Jesus called him friend and let him go to his own account. That is not softness. That is a man who saw clearly and was not fooled for 1 second by the kiss. The sixth one is the hardest to walk away from, because walking away from him feels like betraying him first. But he sat at the table long before she noticed the heel was already lifted. So what does a person do with a list like this? 6 faces, maybe some of them named now, maybe one of them sitting across a supper table this week. Scripture does not answer with revenge. It answers with a direction, and it gives it twice. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. Watch the verbs. Walketh, standeth, sitteth. It is a man slowing down. First he walks past the wrong counsel, then he stops and stands in it, then he sits down and stays. The warning is not about one bad conversation, it is about the drift from passing by, to standing near, to belonging there. And the New Testament gives the plainest instruction of all. Mark them which cause divisions and offenses, contrary to the doctrine which ye have learned, and avoid them. Mark them, not attack them, not expose them, not win, just see them clearly, and avoid them. The word mark means to fix your eyes on, to note, to stop pretending you cannot see the pattern, and then to walk the other way. That is the difference between what God asks and what bitterness wants. Bitterness wants a fight. God asks for a door, quietly closed. And there is one test that has to sit over all 6, because without it, this list becomes cruelty. None of this is about a friend who lost her temper once in a hard season and came back the next morning ashamed of it. None of this is about a careless word that got apologized for before anyone asked. That person is not on this list. Scripture is relentless about forgiving what gets confessed and corrected. That is a different chapter, and just as true. So the test is one question, and it decides everything. Is this a pattern that repeats without correction, or a wound that was owned? A friend who fails and turns around is not a danger. She is a fellow traveler having a hard year. This list is for what does not turn around, for what does not apologize, because it does not believe it needs to. Get that one distinction wrong, and a person cuts off everyone who ever disappointed her. Get it right, and she finally stops handing her whole heart to the one hand that keeps taking from it. Doreen still has the stone in her apron pocket. She took it out, finally, on a Monday, sitting on the flat rock at the edge of the creek where a friend once handed it to her. She turned it over in her palm, smooth, round, worn kind by years of moving water. And she understood something she had felt for a long time without words for it. A stone only ever gets smoother by staying near the water that shaped it. The tongue in David's psalm got sharper the same way a sword does, by being worked, deliberately, in private, against a stone. Water and blade do opposite things to what they touch. One wears a person round and easy. One wears a person to an edge. She had spent years praying beside an edge and calling it water. She did not stop praying that Monday. She just finally understood that praying for someone and staying within reach of his blade were never the same act, and that God had been offering her the second decision the whole time she was making only the first. She can tell, now, which one she has been holding.